All right. We are officially live. Welcome to the stream. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. Feel free to subscribe. Let me know where you're from too. It's 11 a.m. Eastern on my time zone. Kyle, I know it's a little different for you, right? You're
9 a.m.
9 a.m.
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, it's a little different on that side. And just in case you guys are joining, feel free to let me know where you're from. I always like to hear where my viewers are coming from. But today's special guest, like I mentioned, is Coach Kyle here. Why don't you kind of mention quickly who you are, what you do, and why you do what you do?
Absolutely. I'm totally cool with that. Real quick before I do that, I just want to acknowledge that I really appreciate being here. I really appreciate you reaching out and asking. And the moment I seen your YouTube video, because that's how I found you, and then I creeped your Instagram, as you do.
Sure.
And I really appreciate and I want to acknowledge you for what you're doing and what your page is about. And we chatted before, and I just think a lot of the things that we're trying to bring to the table, whether it be through action or perception, is phenomenal. So I think what you're doing is awesome, dude. I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. And like I said, I love to connect with people that are on a similar wavelength. Obviously, Kyle here is doing a lot with lifestyle and behavior change, which is why I figured I'd bring him on the show, because I know that's a lot of the work that I do with clients. So if you could elaborate on that, like behavior, lifestyle. I know you do a little bit of fitness and stuff as well. What is it essentially that you do with your clients?
To put it into a sentence, I like to help folks make more smart decisions and less dumb decisions.
Sure.
But by taking what they want to accomplish into their own hands and focusing less on the circumstance and more on what they do have control of. So there's a lot of philosophy in there too, where it's just controlling what you can, letting go of what you can't. And honestly, most of what I do is core at its core fitness.
Yeah.
Because when we can actually, I like to think of, and I have a story about this, is like, I like to think of our bodies as not like a transportation, but as our weapon. And I think that hardship, difficulty builds up physically, and the more physical resilience we get, as a side effect, we build more mental resilience. And it's not mental toughness, it's resilience. It's when times get tough, can you handle those situations? But the way I go through that is just, the way I teach that is through nutrition and fitness, because then it's a double whammy. When we get the fitness and nutrition, then you have a healthier body. Then you develop the skills for a healthier mind. So it's kind of like a neat little meshing where we're trying to get lifestyle and behavior, fitness and nutrition. So that's kind of the trifecta, the pillars of what I want to bring to the table for folks.
I love that. And that's one of the things that resonated with me when I looked into your content, because I was like, you know what? A lot of these things are very similar concepts and ideas that I teach as well. So there was a lot of parallels, and I love what you said there about how they all kind of tie into each other, and how they're all kind of, one feeds into the other, and how, that hardship, that uncomfortable just situation builds you into that type of person, which is, you're preaching to the choir with that, man. Because I tell my audience that almost in every single video. They're probably sick of me saying it, but
people need reminders.
Yeah, I agree, man. It's 100% true. So that's honestly, I think a perfect segue into the central topic that I have for this stream here. And I know we talked about it beforehand, and I know a lot of guys, especially in the modern era that we live in, I think struggle to find what masculinity as a whole, like how would you define that? So that's kind of how I want to open that up today. Is, in your opinion, how would you define what that is?
Oh, so we're starting with the light questions.
yeah, real easy one to start.
Yeah, super simple. Well, it's funny that you say that, because I was actually pondering how I wanted to go about this, because obviously with any word that's out there, there's going to be some sort of association with it. So every word is made up, right? When someone says, "Oh, you made that word up," yes, of course. Like in 2013, twerk and selfie were added to the dictionary.
Literally.
So it's an ever-evolving process, right?
Right.
But I think So there's the definition that people just commonly agree on. Like a majority of people agree on it. Twerk and selfie as an example. Everyone knows what a twerk is. Everyone knows what a selfie is. They put it in the dictionary. They have a description of it. And then the definition varies depending on which dictionary or which anything like that. And I think that comes into our world as well, like the real world, where a word can have two meanings, and there is the meaning that we agree on, and there is the meaning that we decide. So, will you like? I think of masculinity as a set of tools or tactics, or actually, I think of masculinity as a way for someone to be able to go through the life in a healthy, structured, and ultimately good manner. And we can just that can go with anything. It could go with purpose. It could go with femininity. It could go with anything. It can go with any role that we associate with it. So there is no such thing as a word that is inherently good or bad. It is the meaning that we associate with it. And the good thing is that we can actually change that associated meaning to what helps us develop into the best version of ourselves. So masculinity to me is not a word, but a way of behaving. Because everyone has, no matter what folks want to disagree on or agree on, there is a femininity and a masculinity within all of us. Like when I feel empathy, when I feel compassion, when I feel love, when I feel it like in my heart and in my gut, I know that that is my like inner femininity just being like really putting me into the moment where I want to hug someone, I want to love. And then sometimes just got to get that masculinity out. It's like female CEOs, they have more masculine energy than feminine energy. And that's why if you look at their partners, they have a little bit more of a support role because they want to be part of that. And so, yeah, masculinity is a way of being a way of being or a way of living. It's a code of conduct.
Yeah. That's really well said, man. I would agree with that because I typically define it in a very similar way. Like I say, it's principles, it's standards, it's like you said, behaviors of living. It's not so much like looking and being a certain way. It's just showing up that way and like having certain things that you live by, certain principles. And the way that I like to define it is very similar to what you were saying. It's a lot with purpose fulfillment, goal-oriented action, being a guy who's a provider, a protector, a builder, essentially. I like to say that a lot.
A builder. I like that. I like builder more than doer, actually. I'm going to steal it.
Yeah, go for it, man. I feel like that, to me, resonates the most because when I think of men, I think of like the way of men. I think of a person who can build something, and that can look different to anybody. That could be a business, that could be a relationship, that could be a family, that could be a work of art, that could be whatever it really is. I feel like that act of taking something from nothing and just creating it with your hands or with your mind or with whatever it is, to me, that's masculine energy in its purest form. And that's how I always kind of choose to define it.
Nice. I really like that. I really like that quite a bit.
But I wanted to touch on what you just said too, because I think a lot of that sometimes gets lost, especially because, I'm in the men's improvement space. And a lot of the times, we don't like to talk about the feminine side to our nature or to really everybody's nature. So maybe touch on that for a second. Like, what do you think? Well, I guess a good way to start that is like, how would you define a man's feminine side? Like, what do you feel like that looks like?
Compassion, empathy. I'm really big with words that are associated with action rather than feeling.
Yeah.
Because there's a dichotomy of facts versus feelings. I'm probably just going to have a tangent real quick, but there's a dichotomy of facts versus feelings. We believe that we have to feel a certain way to be a certain way, and that's just not true. Think of like if a friend is moving away, you are joyful, like you are being joyful because you're happy for them, but you
Mm-hmm.
also feel a little sorrow with them moving away.
Mm-hmm.
So although you feel, "Oh, I'm going to miss you so much, like I'm going to miss you," but then you are joyful for them. You're there to support them because you want them to succeed, and you think, oh, if you think this is a good decision for you, then that's amazing. And I think when you have that nice balance, when you have that nice balance, then you have there's consistency with balance. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that at least for myself, I did not like balance for the longest time because it's boring. Things should be exciting, and things should be uh, fluctuations of emotions is a normal thing,
Right.
and that's just not the case. But for what someone could feel something and then embrace that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the more that we push away, like let's say for example, like dudes trying to push away their femininity, or women trying to push away their masculinity, or anybody on the planet that's trying to push one or the other away, they're
Mm-hmm.
just going to find themselves in a sewer cycle where they're putting more energy into pushing, like trying to force something down that's fighting back.
Mm.
They're putting more energy into that, and then they're going to be drained for everything else in life.
Mm.
But I think for a masculine fellow, I think that a truly like balance of the femininity, where you're compassionate, you have that love, you care, you want to bring people in, you want to hug them, you want to tell them that you believe in them, because some folks just need that reminder.
Mm-hmm.
And going to what you said, the masculine side is a lot more of a doer, is a creator, it's a builder. But having that balance of the two can actually perpetuate success in whatever area in so much, in such a faster way,
Mm-hmm.
that some people are actually scared of how fast they can make progress.
Yeah. Yeah, I love what you're saying right now because I could take this a couple different ways, and I
Go
might
for it.
ask you another question after this one, after we get into this. But what you're saying is reminding me a lot of a video that I made probably no, maybe 2 years ago, where I talk about the typical like nice guy, being a nice
Mhm.
guy, being a guy who cares, being a people pleaser, this and that. And I think there's extremes to either end, like you're saying. Like you could be a little bit overly feminine, and that can sometimes be hurtful, just as you could be overly masculine sometimes, and that can be hurtful as well. So I love the concept you're bringing in of finding that balance, because I feel like a lot of guys, well, I guess it comes in two different forms, because a lot of guys, I think, suffer from that overly masculine, like just do, never find that relaxation, never find that just serenity, that peace.
Mm.
And then I feel like there's another subset of men right now, and I think maybe this is something that we can get into, of modern men, which I think nowadays men are a little bit on the too feminine side, where
Mhm.
they're consuming, they're being nurturing, they're being a little bit too comfortable, and they have trouble finding that masculine side. So I wonder if you can speak to that a little bit, if you think, and maybe if you disagree, if you think that's kind of what's happening right now. Is that like something you notice as well?
Yeah, without a doubt. And going into my own little bit, like I was on the extreme of masculinity for a longer duration of time than
Mm.
involving my inner femininity. That's for damn sure. And
Yeah.
I think for speaking for myself as a dude,
Mm.
the thing that we don't have in Western culture that most other cultures have and have been doing for hundreds of years is we don't actually have a rite of passage.
Facts.
We don't have a defining, you're going from boyhood to manhood. We don't
Right.
have that. The only thing that we really have is how many Jaeger bombs and fireball shots you can handle on your 18th birthday.
Yep.
And it's just not conducive to, um, it's not conducive to actually uh, no growth. There's just no growth to it. And
Mm.
that's why we see people going into their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 30s and blah, 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 longer durations where there's still those man children, those man boys. where they still have temper tantrums and they can't reason with themselves in the way of like, why is it that I'm having this temper tantrum? Because it's scary going into that, because it involves vulnerability, and vulnerability takes courage. And the thing that, in my experience, it was in 2016 where I really had my defining like switch up, and it was, and this goes into like dudes being like physical beings. I think that everyone should go through some sort of physical difficulty. And it's going to vary from person to person. Like getting up off the couch could be something difficult, or doing any other activity. So in 2016, I recognize it as my own rite of passage. And I was like struggling at that time, and it was really tough. Like I was just a POS. It was horrible. And don't worry, I don't think of it as myself as a POS anymore. It's all good. Because some folks will be like, no, it's okay. You're not POS. I'm like, no. At that time, I absolutely was. It's okay. Right. I acknowledge it. But I think, well, that's actually one thing is folks are too quick from my experience, folks are too quick to counter your critique with a compliment or a thought.
Well, I think your screen just went pink there.
I don't know why. Oh shit! I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry about that.
No, you're good. You're good. We can hear you still. It's just the video is a little, I think, disconnected.
Oh shit. Okay, might do something real quick here. Oh, there we go. Oh, going with what I was saying, at least. Oh, this is brutal. Sorry about that.
Oh, you're good.
So people. Okay, I'll try to figure out my thought first. So folks try to discredit the critique, and the thing that's difficult about that is for me to say that at that time, I also needed to do that to recognize what I needed to change to be able to become better. And more folks should just be a little bit more critical of what they are wanting to accomplish and do. All right. We're going to figure something out here.
Well, technical difficulties here.
Yeah.
There we go. It's somewhat fixed. Maybe not.
Trying to figure out how to switch up my.
Whoop. Looks like he lost connection there for a second. We'll connect him back in if everything's good to go. Sorry about that, guys. Sometimes that happens, dealing with technology. But I can speak to what he was saying briefly, because I agree. Like, you have to be hard on yourself to a certain extent. You have to acknowledge the man in the mirror. I say this a lot, taking accountability, taking ownership of your shortcomings, of the things that you're not doing well in your life. A lot of guys, I think, glaze over this, or they try to act like what they're doing is not bad, it's not negative, it's not debilitating them. But sometimes you have to give yourself that brutal honesty. And I think what Kyle was saying here is, you have to be that authentic, honest person to yourself, because no one else is going to tell you. They're going to fluff you up, and they're going to make it, they're going to sugarcoat it and not tell you what you need to hear. But as long as you're telling yourself that, as long as you're telling yourself the honest, utmost, brutal truth, that's the thing that matters the most. So I'm trying to see if I can get Kyle back in the studio here. I think he's having some device problems, so I'm going to message him, but we'll keep this thing rolling just in case you guys are hopping in. Looks like there's 3 people that just hopped in. Feel free to comment to the side too. Let me know where you guys are from, what time it is in your time zone. I'm just gonna message Kyle right here and see if I can get him back on the stream because we were having a great conversation. It just cut us off. Let's see if I can get him back in. It says device not connected. Sorry guys, let me deal with this real quick. He's trying to get back in, but I do like the concept that we were talking about of finding that balance of masculine and feminine energies, because I do think that that's something that is not talked about a lot in this space. You know, I think we try to go over too extreme in either or, because you could be too masculine, you could also be too feminine. However, what I was saying to Kyle was, I think my demographic and the people that I speak to the most are modern men who live in a little bit too feminine right now. They're a little bit too passive, a little bit too comfortable, a little bit too easygoing, go with the flow. They don't have that structure, they don't have that guidance, they don't have that direction to make things happen and to take action. And that was my experience, being a little bit too feminine and not experiencing my masculine. I had to find that in myself, which is a big reason why I ended up making this channel, because just from my experiences, I've had to learn that, and I've had to get a lot of guidance from mentors, from coaches, from programs. You guys know the story. So it's something that is important, something that men need to discover in themselves. It's not going to just happen when you're just thinking about it. Okay, looks like Kyle just popped back in, so I'm going to reintroduce him to the stream here. Okay, I can see you. Can you hear me?
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Your screen's a little dark though.
I'll figure that out too.
But at least we can see you.
Right? Sweet. Okay, cool. Haha.
But we're good. It seems like we're on schedule to get you back on track here. I was just telling them kind of what we were just talking about, just alluding to, like, you know, finding that brutal honesty that we need to have with ourselves, you know, and being objective, being real, and not sugarcoating it, being like, hey man, I really screwed up this week, I got to get back to it. It's not letting yourself off the leash, essentially.
I totally agree with that. Just a little there. Well, something's loading, so that's good. Can you at least hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, your screen's just frozen, but I can hear you though.
Yeah. Well, that's good at least. And yeah, I completely agree. Like, people just need to keep that in mind, where if the mission is actually, or if the goal is to actually just get better over time, then there has to be a sense of critical thinking. And it's not in a way to beat yourself down. It's actually in a way to see how to actually get better. It's just collecting data and reorganizing the trajectory to be able to accomplish it.
Yeah. I think it comes even back to what you were saying earlier about how things don't inherently have a good or a bad meaning until we assign that meaning to them. So you can apply that same concept to your own progress. You can look at, hey, I didn't go to the gym, or I didn't eat well this week, or I didn't, work on myself, I didn't do what I had to do. You can look at that as a bad thing and say, man, I suck, I'm a loser, like this is terrible. Or you can look at that as a positive and say, all right, I didn't do it, but this is a new week, this is a new day, let's get back to it, and let's focus on what are some of the things that I can now maneuver around, what are my triggers. So I agree, it's all about how you look at it.
I at least got one camera going.
There we go. Yeah, it's still a little bit dark, but it's at least a live video.
Totally. I'll have to figure out the rest. I'm not sure what happened on that one, but
I don't know.
It's okay. We'll figure it out at some point.
Yeah, man.
Now I forgot what we were chatting about on one part there, but
yeah. I was just saying how, everything is meaningless until we assign meaning to it, essentially. So, like, kind of viewing your situation as good or bad, it's nobody else's definition but your own.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. And I think, honestly, folks just really need to sit down and think about and define what they think of for what they believe is right and what is their truth as well. And
Yeah.
really coming up with and being very, very clear about what that looks like, then it
Mm-hmm.
creates a code of conduct through that way. It's just honesty.
Mm-hmm. I agree, man. And we can speak on that for a second too, because I talk about that extensively on my channel, is like men setting their own standards, setting their principles, setting their values that they believe in, because I think that one of the things that lacks is when you don't have that internal principle or that internal, like you said, code of conduct. Typically what happens is you follow other people and you just do it because, well, my friends believe this, my family believes this, so and so said this, and you kind of just fall into that. So I really try to stress on this channel, like, to figure out what that means to you. There we go, now you're good to go.
Yeah.
Now the
Sorry
picture's
about
good.
that, folks.
You're good. You're good, man. We're working through it.
Cool.
Um, but yeah, like, what would you say to that when it comes to men learning to set their own standards and kind of have that for themselves? Because I think if you don't do it for yourself, someone's going to do it for you.
Yes, and I think that that's the part where people are looking for handouts rather than opportunities, and I think that
Yeah.
everyone and everything is just an amalgamation of everything that's come before.
Yeah.
And I think being really, really clear on the person that we want to become,
Mm,
that's really important, because getting what we want comes as a side effect of being the person it takes to get it. If we do not define who that person is, then we're not going to behave according to that person. So we're never going to
yeah.
get what we want.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the person that we need to figure out who we want to be. And I think that when we look at the inspirations or the people that we look up to, those are the people that we can actually take. We don't need to take everything, but we can take the components that can really connect us to our vision, our values, and that's okay. It's cool that nothing is really original. Nothing's creative.
Right.
Things are the only way that we have creativity is being able to bring all these like cool things together, and that's what makes it our own.
Mm,
And I think people feel a lot of pressure to have everything figured out now,
mm-hmm.
rather than just being like, you know what? Why is it that I think that? Oh, it's because of so and so.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, why did I do that? Or habits and behaviors, because we are a byproduct of our affiliations.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's the saying where it's like we're the 5 people that we spend the most time with, or we are an amalgamation of that. And I think really defining who your own counsel is, whether the individuals are alive or dead, I think that's very important, because then we get to learn from these crazy successful people in whatever way you define success.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing as well, is we can actually have like a gray area where we define things in a way that can perpetuate either problems or solutions.
Mm,
And then I like to say that success and failure is based off behavior, and behavior is based off of our choice, both unconscious and conscious. So the better choices we can make, whether big or small, the more we're going to the more we're going to actually, or the faster we're actually going to reach what we want to accomplish. Whether that is, let's say, in one of the main 3 categories of health, relationships, wealth.
yeah. Yeah, and I think that the the problem comes up when guys get their definition of success or their definition of what it means to be a man from outside factors or from people or from media, from, whatever it is, and they get like, I mean, I know that I used to be like this. They get really anxious or they get real like defensive or just sensitive to that because they don't feel like, oh, I'm not living up to this standard. But it's like, whose standards are they? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, are they your standards? Are they somebody else's? Are they the news's standards, the media's? Like, if it's not coming from you, then it's not always worth your attention.
Yep. and it's not your truth. It's not your
Yeah,
authenticity.
exactly.
It's you're living up to someone else's standards. And the thing as well is like what we depend on makes the rules. So if
Yeah.
we're depending on external factors to decide who we are, then everyone else, everything else, all the external circumstances, those are what define, or those are what we depend on. Thus,
Mm-hmm.
they make the rules. It makes the rules. Life makes the
Mm-hmm.
rules. And so when we can take that thought and then look inwards and be like, you know what? And this is another thing too, is like it's something that's inherent in us. It's hard to have our own thoughts, ideas, questions, because back in the day when we were in a collection of tribes, free thinking was discouraged because it was bad for the tribe. It was bad for all of us.
Mm.
Because if there was a different way of thinking, we were kicked out of the tribe and our chances of survival are just bare minimum, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're not in that time anymore. Our environment is evolving faster than our brains. We still have those primitive brains.
Mm-hmm.
And rather than just like, instead of just kind of accepting that, like we can come up with our own thoughts, and it's okay if our friends don't agree with us.
Right.
It's okay if we don't agree with our friends.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the thing as well, is as long as like there is a truth, I find that the more truth that I find within myself, the more gentle I am with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe, and it's coming from a place of consideration, like maybe they haven't found their truth, and that's why they could be feeling X, Y, and Z about what I said.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say someone, for an example, someone's frustrated with what I said. I ask them, like, why is it that you feel frustrated with what I said? Why, what is the feeling that you're getting right now? Because I'm curious. I'm genuinely curious, and I want to understand it. And the best way that I can understand is to ask questions.
Mm.
And folks are just focused on the me rather than the we.
Right.
And if we have that, like that abundance, if we have that where we're trying to give, and then we're trying to understand, that's the only way we can actually understand another person's consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
is by just asking questions to understand where they're coming from, so that we can logically understand it, but also like respond in a form of compassion.
Mm.
Because if we don't find our truth in that way, if we're not like really certain of at least like a bare minimum amount of things, like I'm pretty sure we can all agree that killing people is like bad, right?
Right.
Like if we can all
Hopefully.
agree on that, or if a majority of folks can agree on that,
Mm-hmm.
then what other inner truth are we just fighting each other over that we can actually come up with, like conclude together?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, man. I mean, I definitely, it's funny that we're talking about this because like I was just having a conversation yesterday, well actually last night with my girlfriend, and we don't always share the exact same beliefs. I mean, we're very, very similar when it comes to that, but sometimes there is a little bit of dissonance between what we believe in, and that's okay. And like you said, it's not like you have to agree with everything that somebody else says, and you have to take on their total ideologies. You don't have to, and you can still get along with that person without agreeing with them.
Mm-hmm.
But I even find myself doing that sometimes, where I almost try to convert her to believe what I believe, because I'm like, no, like you're my girlfriend, like take my side, like believe me. But you sometimes I forget, like that's another person too. So it's like has her own experiences, own values, this and that. So yeah, I even fall into that sometimes. It could be tricky.
We all do. I think
Yeah.
that's just a normal part of being human, really. And I think because like I'm the same way too. I think all of us are the same way, and then
Mm-hmm.
it's trying to make it so that we can insert a little bit of logic and reason in between stimulus and response or reaction.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say in those examples, because I'm sure there's always going to be at least one person that's going to disagree with the point of view.
Oh yeah.
And I think the thing that's really good is when you feel like, that frustration that you feel like in your gut, you're like, oh, this person's so wrong. And I just want to prove this person wrong. And I'm going to freaking, and it's just like frustration, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we feel that, I think when we switch it from trying to go from a place of preaching to a place of understanding, then we can actually find a common denominator. So I don't think the trick is not to try to sell someone or pitch someone or convert someone to our beliefs. I think it's trying to find the common denominator in two different components, because what overlaps, so let's say like out of 100% of what we got going on, let's say you and I had a dispute and we can at least agree on 1% of each thing. That's the truth, because those parts overlap. Everything else is kind of like personal opinion or anything like that, but there is for sure a common denominator that everyone can kind of like associate. It's just like what I said, like most people can come to the conclusion that killing people is bad. Boom, boom. That is our truth. Some folks may believe that to be masculine, there is no feminine. I can disagree with that, but I'm sure I can agree with some points about their masculinity from their experience. Because I think the dangerous thing with trying to trying to sell people on your way of thinking, on our way of thinking, not yours specifically, but the difficulty or the shaky, the difficult spot where we're trying to bring someone over is we're also discrediting their experience, and their own unique individuality as well. But the thing as well is that if we're trying to sell them on something, on our beliefs, they're trying to sell us on their beliefs. So this happens. So then we're going from a place of trying to be right rather than trying to understand. And the actual important stuff is going to get filtered through. It's not even going to get filtered through. It's going to be not even touched on because it's two individuals or many individuals trying to be right. And having that, coming from that place of understanding, just makes things a lot easier to be able to be compassionate and empathize. Right?
Yeah. Which is kind of coming back to it, is more, it's like a feminine trait to have that empathy, to listen, to understand, to like hear somebody out. And like you were saying, I think we get so caught up in that and trying to like convince people that you're wrong, I'm right, like listen to what I'm saying. And like as a content creator, I'm sure you've experienced this. It's just like that's always happening, where we're putting out our ideas, we're putting out our thoughts, and we get these haters that come up in the comments like, bro, what the fuck you talking about? You're wrong. Like, this is stupid. Like, blah, blah, blah. I've gotten so many of those, especially on Instagram. And I'm just like thinking to myself, like, what the, like, I didn't even say anything to you. Like, it has nothing to do with you. Like, why are you so mad? But like, I think it comes back to what you're saying of they're so convinced of their own story or their own experiences that no matter what I say, it's not even about me. It's how they feel about the information or the idea that I'm putting out there. It doesn't mesh well. So yeah, it can be tricky.
To piggyback off of that as well, I think another thing as well is our beliefs. Unless we practice looking at our own beliefs objectively, that's where understanding comes in as well. If we're not looking at our stuff objectively, then we're going to have our beliefs combined with our identity. So if our beliefs and our thoughts are challenged, it's not the beliefs and the thoughts, it's us as human beings being challenged. And I think and that's totally normal. Like that's totally normal. But I think what's made it easier for me is separating how I feel from what I think. And that's easier said than done. But it's a skill that's developed over time. It's not something that's natural. It's never been natural for me, and I'm still working on it day to day because it's a way to get better. It's a practice. It's a daily practice. And that's where journaling, mindfulness, and actually just checking yourself before you wreck yourself is very important.
Yeah.
And so if I feel a spur of something, it's like, why did I feel that? Why did I feel that? Oh, it's because, let's say, for example, like we'll use masculine and feminine because it's on track with the goal. But if, like, let's say someone was like, I view myself by my definition as a masculine individual. So if someone comes in like an IG hater, and they're like, you're the most feminine person I know, and then I get fired up by that, it's because it's not because that's their opinion. Their opinion is neither right nor wrong, because it goes story, feeling, reaction. We always forget that the story comes before the feeling.
That's true.
And just like, and I'll give a different example because I don't want to leave that one just by itself. If we're driving down a road, everything is honky-dory, beautiful, beautiful day, and a car goes towards us, like it goes into our lane, and now the car is coming to us. It's not feeling. It's not, huh. No matter how quick or how slow, it's the exact same process every freaking time. First, we come up with the story. Oh, shoot, this person's coming towards me. This person's in a car. This person's coming towards me. They're going pretty quick. We're not thinking the other things like, are they passing the other car? Are they actually just trying to, are they in an emergency? Are they trying to rush their kid to the hospital? But what we think is that car is coming towards me. Then we associate a feeling. Oh, panic. Then we respond or we react, because response and reaction are two different things. Then we take that and then we're just like, oh shit. Then we get out of the way. So we developed a story because of the stimulus, and then we respond and react in accordance to that stimuli. But that story is where we can control the perception of it, where we can control the perception. That's just like a bigger example, but we can do that for the little things as well, because it's how we perceive what we do will affect how we do what we do, right? That's Inky Johnson, I believe, said that. And it's like so interesting. It's so interesting. Our brains are just so funny. Like animals, we're just humans. We're animals, right? And we're just like just kind of reacting most of the time. But we have something that's beautiful that no other animal on the planet has, and that's our consciousness. Like realistically, we're all from the exact same point in time. The only thing that separates you or I, or you, me, and everyone else on the planet and every other organism is our consciousness. Like who you are and who I am, the only difference. Because from a biological level, if we go right down, like we still have DNA, we still have muscles, we still have eyes, ears, we still have our fight, flight, feed, and fornicate. Right? That's our animal. That's our animal brains. Everyone knows what fornicate. I just like throwing in fornicate because no one's like, oh, it catches people off guard. But the only thing that separates us is our consciousness. And I think something that's beautiful is that we can kind of at least influence, or I kind of think of it like, this is the only Star Trek reference I'll probably ever make, but it's just like being Captain Kirk. And I actually do have a favorite Trek captain, and it's actually Chris Pike, Captain Chris Pike. He's my favorite. I'm gonna have to show folks this one. No one's gonna believe me on this, but he's my favorite. He's my favorite captain out of all folks. But the thing is like, if you think of our consciousness as the captain of the ship, we have the rest of the feels around us that's bringing in information. But we have to remember that it's the story that's making us feel a certain way. It's not what it is.
Right.
Oof.
Yeah.
That was a random one. Jeepers.
That was a good one though, because it kind of ties everything together of, that narrative that plays in our head, or that almost that impression that we even have of ourselves and the world around us, and like how those influences come into play. And what we see is usually a product of what we believe, like what we perceive.
Mhm.
And I say that I kind of use a similar analogy when I talk about guys finding their direction. Like you're basically the captain of your ship, as long as you know where that is going, wind's going to blow you a million different ways. Like you might
Mm.
be off course a little bit. You might go this way. You might go that way. The waves are going to be rocking the boat. You're going to be a little just, you're going to go over the place sometimes. But I think as long as you have that North Star, that central direction, then you're good. I mean, everything else is kind of just, you just pivot, you just figure it out along the way. Um, I know that for men, I try to preach this for men specifically, is like finding that North Star, finding that mission, that purpose, that goal, that thing that you are pursuing in life. And it looks different for everybody. Maybe that's, like I was
Yeah.
saying, making a family, starting a family, or maybe that's starting a business. Maybe that's starting, leveling up in your company right now and you want to be a CEO or whatever that is. It's important to find that. And in your opinion, like how do you see, or I guess how important do you think that is in a man's life specifically? Because it's important
Yeah,
for everybody, but for men, like
totally.
to find that direction and to make sure it's not anything motivated by, pleasure or like lesser desires, to put it lightly.
Nice. Lester does. I love that you said that, dude. Oh, what a great question. Yeah, I think it's actually important because our value and vision drive every decision,
Mhm.
right? That was definitely not mine. I think that was Craig Ballantyne that said that. But
Yeah.
our value and vision drive every decision. And if we don't, now I'm just busting out the quotes, but if we don't stand for something, we're not going to live up to anything.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the thing, is like everyone wants to be a part of something. Like, who doesn't want to be a part of something? Who didn't want to be a part of NSYNC or Backstreet Boys back in the day? But
Right.
the thing is, like, without the vision, without having a sense of purpose,
Hmm.
then we can't act. If we don't have the vision, then we can't figure out who that person is that would be at that point.
Right.
So that kind of ties into thinking, or what I said earlier about, we have to figure out who the person we want to be, and
Hmm.
get the outcome that we want as a side effect of being that person.
Right.
Because then we actually get to integrate those components. But if we don't know, it's like a compass, right? If we don't know where, and this is going to tie into this is going to be a cool one. If we don't know where we're going, then we can't figure out which decision is right or wrong, and we're just stagnant.
Yeah.
And I think that it helps with congruence.
For sure.
Very, very big thing for me, and then this is where I base a lot of my decisions off of, is congruence. It's acting in the way that you speak.
Right.
If you say you're going to do something, then do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like it drives me, like, the hypocrisy of saying that you're wanting to do something and then not doing anything, but you keep on saying it over and over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a matter of taking responsibility for your circumstances and then being able to progress it despite the circumstances. Because everybody's circumstances at some point sucks. There's not a person on the planet that has not gone through a hardship. The hardship can vary depending on person to person, but at the same time, when we experience it, it's the worst thing on the planet. And it could be something simple, or it could be something crazy. But this is the thing that people forget, is no matter what, there's at least one person that was in the exact same circumstance that we're in right now that has overcome it. So there's proof of practice. There's proof of application. There's proof that there is an individual out there, out of 8 billion people on the planet. I'm pretty sure it's 8 billion. But out of all the people on the planet, there's at least one person that's in the exact same circumstances. And I'm using the exact same because some people will downplay their circumstances because someone else is suffering more.
Yeah.
But there is at least one person that has gone through the exact same thing that you are at right now. And people tend to forget that. People tend to forget that there is other people on the planet. It's not just us, or it's not just ourselves. There's definitely another dude that's out there that started a podcast wanting to bring the world or introduce the world to the modern man, the sophisticated man.
Sure.
Right? There's for me, like there's an ethos. I didn't come up with an ethos. It was freaking like, I didn't come up with any philosophy or a way of thinking. It's philosophy. It was like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca. It could be like modern day Stoics, Ryan Holiday. It could be Jocko Willink. It could be any of those people. But the thing is like, folks are looking for handouts rather than opportunities. And that's freaking annoying too, because it's just like lottery winners. When they get the money, they lose it within 2 years. Why do they do that? It's because they did not develop the characteristics. They didn't become the person it takes to be able to handle that amount of money.
Right.
It's like if someone, let's say, let's go with the fitness one. Let's go with liposuction. People will pay for liposuction to lose weight or to remove excess body fat. Let's go with that, because weight can vary. Anyways, to lose excess body fat, it happens overnight. What happens? They gain it back within 2 years.
Literally.
Let's go with bariatric surgery. Bariatric surgery, you're literally cutting out a part of your stomach. I'm not sure if you know this, but you can only cut your stomach out once.
I can imagine me that much.
Right? But this is the thing, is after bariatric surgery, and they tell you this beforehand too in most cases, but if you go in for the surgery, boom, chop out half of your stomach. Then they immediately say, you're going to actually mostly consume liquids from now on. So it actually doesn't change the desire to consume. It's not hitting the points of, why is it that I consume? Is it to distract? Is it because I'm bored? Is it because I'm scared? Those are the three main factors. That's the three-headed dragon of procrastination. Is it trying to medicate? The only difference between someone who has what they want and someone that's in a situation that they don't want it is, do they have productive behaviors or do they have consumptive behaviors?
It's facts.
But going into the bariatric surgery part, 2 years after they have their surgery, they do gain it back. You can't cut your stomach out once because they're still behaving in the way that got them to the place to start with.
Yeah.
So if you're not changing the behaviors, you're going to stay where you're at. And changing the behaviors is scary because of how we believe ourselves to be. It's how we view ourselves, because we have to change our identity to get what we want. We have to change how we're being and acting, behaving, and performing. It's craziness. And so that's why I think it's very important for folks to really dial in that there is a possibility, there is a chance. And another thing as well is like, oh, I can't do this. I tried this a bajillion times, and I'm using health as an example specifically. But the thing that's really interesting with that is, there's a little background noise. My bad.
The distracting.
Right? It just caught me off guard there. But the thing, I forgot what I was going to say on that one. But the thing is, it's scary to change the person that we believe we are in the current moment, because what we want to accomplish seems so far, seems so scary. And it looks like we're looking at Everest.
Yeah.
But it's okay. That's okay to be scared. What's not okay is to allow it to rule you. Fear is an acronym, false evidence appearing real. Why not try it? Because if there's a 1% chance of success in whatever it is you want to accomplish, why not give it a try? Because if what you're doing now has a 0% chance of success, there's no harm in trying.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree 100%, man. And I think like sometimes I'll get guys reaching out to me, to your point of being like, oh, like, dude, I don't know how to become that kind of man. Like, I can't become the strongest version of myself, or like a more masculine man, this or that, because they see me talking about the things that I've done, it's like, I think people forget, it's like, yo, I was in your place before. Like, I understand how you think and why you think that way, because I used to look at guys who I was watching YouTube videos of and coaches that I followed and be like, yo, that guy got it all. Like, he's got it. But it's funny because, like, it's another famous quote. Speaking of quotes that we're just pulling out, it's like,
Love quotes.
if you spot it, you got it. So whatever you recognize in somebody else is dormant within yourself. You just have to tap into that fully.
I like that. Nice.
I've always lived by that quote because, like, because everybody's a reflection of us. So if I see somebody because I get mad at people that say they're going to do something, but they don't do it, like you were saying, like not having that integrity. And I get mad at that because I feel like it's because I want to be somebody who's really has strong integrity. And I want to be someone who never does that. So if I recognize that, it's like I see myself being that kind of person and it makes me upset. And I don't want to be that person. So to me, it triggers that.
I'm gonna add to that one.
Yeah.
So going with the stimulus story feelings.
Mm-hmm.
I have the same stimulus and the same feelings, but a different story.
Yeah.
So for me, when I see that lack of integrity, that lack of self-respect, like making promises to yourself, because we need to make promises to ourselves. If we don't, it's just like anyone else. If someone breaks a promise, how much do we trust them? How much do we depend on them?
Right.
We don't depend or trust on them very much. We have to develop that. We have to acknowledge that when we do something that we say we're going to do, that is us keeping a promise to ourselves. And with that, we develop more self-respect and stuff like that. So the story that I tell is when I have the stimulus of the incongruence where someone's not living with integrity, that they're not practicing what they preach. My story is I was that person. Like our mess is our message.
Yeah.
And I was that person. So every time that happens, I'm like looking at myself like
right
2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a reminder. But without the reflection, I wouldn't know that. Mm-hmm. Without being critical on myself and looking at the data to counter it, I wouldn't know that. So that's when I actually feel a lot more compassionate about the journey that I've been on, and it tempers my expectations, because at some point I was at that point too. Mm-hmm. So although I might be getting frustrated with a person, they have the potential to overcome it, and I find solace in that. I find peace in that, because the best thing that I can do is keep on doing what I'm doing, and maybe at some point they're gonna learn from that. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing as well. That goes into what we were chatting about, how we'll get frustrated when we feel our identity is challenged. Mm-hmm. And so all the things that someone that's incongruent would say, any objections, I don't have time, I don't have money, I don't know where to start, I don't know this, that, or the other. We have Google, we have YouTube, we have podcasts. Right. We have folks like us that actually want to change people's lives. And it's so funny because people forget about that journey, like what you were saying. Like exactly. we just see what someone's already done. Mm-hmm. And then we're like, oh, they were born with it, they already got it. And that's that's absolute horse shit. Mm-hmm. It's horse shit. Mm-hmm. And the thing that's so funny is, like, we have to temper that feeling. Because when I feel it, where I'm just like, you have so much potential and you're just getting in your own way. It's not the circumstances, it's ourselves. And it's our responsibility to change those circumstances, or change how we respond and react, or change the actions that we take on a day-to-day basis. And that's where, when I feel that, that's where it's like, nope, I got to feel compassionate. I got to feel empathy. I understand where you were at that time. I feel it. I get it. I was there. So we have to remember that, okay, we have that, like, oh, we want to challenge. But it's like, no. This is not a time to challenge beliefs. Mm-hmm. This is a time to listen, because in that moment, what that person is speaking to us about, even though we've experienced it and we can provide all the solutions, some people just need to be heard in that moment because they just need to speak it, because that's their moment of self-reflection. And so I think patience and compassion is actually, I'm actually thinking of that now, but I think patience and compassion is actually very underrated.
Yeah.
Oof.
It definitely is. It definitely is, man. And I think like as creators in our space, you know, talking to the audiences that we talk to, I think a lot of it comes down to, you know, having that understanding of the people that watch us. They're going through something, they've been through it, or they're, you know, a lot of times it's stuff that we've done in our lives. It's like, yo, I've been there too. I get it. So I definitely resonate with that, trying to put myself in my audience's shoes and say, yo, I used to be that guy, so I understand how it can feel. But then also too, to kind of add to that, I think that's why we are in such a great position, because really all we have to do is just lead by example and show I'm living that kind of life that I want other people to live by. So I'm going to document just what I'm experiencing, my ideas, my beliefs. If other people want to hop on board and ride this train with me, dope, let's do it. If not, that's cool too. Like there's other trains at the train station. You don't have to ride my train.
Nice.
But you know what I mean? Like I think it's just setting that example, and it's a lot of what I try to do on my channel.
And you absolutely do, dude. Like, I love your videos. They're awesome. And it's so funny. I don't even know how I found your YouTube channel, but it just popped up and I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But I thought, I think that's so cool. I think it's great, because this is the thing as well, is like, this is where at least the patience, because as someone who likes solving problems, I have to remind myself that they just may not be at that point in their journey yet. It's the hero's journey, man.
Yeah.
It's the hero's journey. Like, they are not in the position right now where they want to take that call to action. People are called to courage, because it's a fantastic book, Ryan Holiday, Courage is Calling.
Yeah.
And some folks will put off that call. Like, it's like Florence Nightingale. She was the first nurse in a time where there was no such thing as female nurses. And she had that call for years, right? And then she eventually decided to become a nurse, and then change the trajectory of the medical field forever. But what if she actually took that call right off the first one? She was just like, ding, ding, oh, what's up? Rather than ignore. So I think folks need to be also very patient with themselves, that maybe at this moment is not the right time, but there will be a time where that call to action will have to be taken. And I also, because a lot of folks have lived a lot longer than they have left.
Yeah.
And they're still putting that call off to the side. And to me, I think that that's very scary, but that's okay. But going back with the hero's journey part, eventually through that call to action, then there's mentors. There's a mentor that comes into our life. It could be me, it could be you, it could be Yoda, it could be Gandalf, it could be Merlin, it could be fill in the blank.
Anybody,
every good story has a mentor.
Right.
And I think that until the person's okay with that call to action, I've chatted with people for years, and then I've chatted with people for years, as in, like, let's say 2 years, and then at the 3-year mark, then they wanted to work with me. Right?
True.
So it's also meeting someone where they're at right now, rather than just trying to solve their problems for them fast. Yeah.
I like the way you put that, because it is truly all that hero's call to adventure. That's something that I want to get that book, because I speaking of mentors, one of my mentors actually mentions that book a lot, and he references that exact thing of that that call to adventure is when you get
Mm-hmm.
that call, are you going to, take that action? Because I think everybody gets it. I think everybody has that moment that they can choose to move forward, or they can choose to just, stay where they're at and not actually take that. It's just a matter of, are you willing to go through that, And I
Yep.
think it is different for everybody. I know for me, I'll say this quick story and then we could probably wrap it up here. But
Sure.
um, that's essentially what happened to me. Is like I was going through a lot of things 4 or 5 years ago. Had to, was failing school. I didn't have a passion in my major anymore. So I was like, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Had to cut off toxic friends. Was getting dumped basically by a girl, and like all this crap was happening at once. On top of that, I had back surgery where I had to sit down and reflect. And as I was like, I was immobilized for like a couple months. I couldn't go out and do much. So I had to sit there and think like, what do I really want to do? And like, what kind of life do I want to live moving forward here? And like, to me, that was my call to adventure. And it's like, am I going to take this, or am I going to sit here, feel sorry for myself, mope around, and just stay stagnant? And it's like, every guy gets that. And every person I think gets that, but every man I think has that journey to go ahead and take it. And you know it's up to them to be aware enough to realize, hey, it's happening. Let's make a change.
To add to that too, I think that if there's a call to action, and this is just like how things just happen. Things just
Yeah,
happen, and
for
sometimes
sure.
there's actually like a meaning or a purpose, or it seems like a fluke at that time, but
Yeah.
then you look back on it, it's a really cool story to think of.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually think that it's either folks are either going to willingly accept that call,
Yeah.
or life and circumstances are going to force you
Right.
into accepting that call. And that's exactly what happened with you, because I'm sure you were
Yeah.
thinking similar thoughts as you are now then,
Mm-hmm.
but you just may have been like pressing that ignore for a while. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, okay, so this motherfucker here is not listening. He's kind of ghosting us. Let's fuck up his back.
Sure.
And then he'll be forced to reflect.
Honestly, I honestly think that's what happened. Because funny enough, like I would I would watch some YouTube videos here and there, and I would watch like Alpha M videos, and like
Nice.
guys talking about manhood, masculinity, and all this stuff. And I was like, I'm not really into that quite. I didn't understand it, but it was years. I would like this would pop up on my YouTube feed, and I'd like look at them, but then I feel like shame for looking at it, because I'm like, oh man, I'm looking at like videos like this. Like, I must be weak. Why am I looking at this? And like I wouldn't tell my
Nice.
friends about it or anything. And that would happen so much. But then like it's funny, like you said, I had to sit down and I had nothing else to do but look up on YouTube. And then what was the first thing that came up? A dating video about guys being like masculine and this and that.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I was like, what is this whole shit about? Like, I never understood masculine energy, feminine energy. I didn't know what that was. So I just deep dove into it. But it's like you're right. Like, I was getting that for a long time, but it wasn't until I chose to like, all right, I'm gonna look into this now, until things started to happen for me. So it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. I think everything. This is another thing that more tactical actually, because I'd like to
Yeah.
have a tactical part. But
Mhm.
something that's really tactical is no matter what, there's always going to be a decision at some point,
Right.
and inaction is still a decision.
Mm.
Indecision is still a decision,
Right.
and I think as long as folks are okay, or at least recognize that there is a decision to either keep themselves in their set ways, or
Mm.
to expect a little bit more from themselves.
Yeah.
When we can break things down into this or that, then it's a lot easier to kind of like help guide the path, right?
Mm.
And so, yeah, I think decisions, like breaking it down to what would be the alternative if I did this,
Mm.
is a really good way to kind of tactically get through life, because then at least you're a being of will rather than a creature of whim
Yeah.
through that decision making. It's not just like oh, I'm just gonna sit on the couch today and I'm good. If I'm mindful about it and think it, and I'm like, you know what, a solid 30 minutes on the couch would actually do me well.
Mm-hmm.
Or I could probably do an extra 30 minutes of work while on the couch. Right? Either or is good for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's when people mindlessly go through life rather than mindfully go through life. That's when we start getting into the icky business.
That's true. It comes down to presence, man. I agree. And that mindfulness. So yeah, man, I think that's a great way to kind of wrap it up and end it there, man. Is there any last thoughts, any last things you want to say before we get out of here?
Let's go with that we may understand that other folks have flaws, but we can also accept that we have flaws as well, and we don't need to expect perfection from ourselves. We can be kind to ourselves while critiquing ourselves. We can change who we are to fit what we want. We don't have to just accept something for the way it is. And if you want to have higher standards than your friends, that's okay. It's okay. And there's nothing wrong with having higher standards or setting standards for yourself, because you're not living anyone else's life but your own. And so there's no sense in living your life based off of someone else's expectations. Obviously, that's going to be difficult, and there's going to be some sort of circumstantial stuff that someone could easily put in there to object that point. But the thing that's really cool is if you really ponder it, just take away the feels from it and really ponder it and just like reflect on it. Go for a walk, just earbuds out, nothing, and just think about it. And just find what your inner truth is. Because other people's feelings are not worth your mental health. So this is it. Like, I'm not going to be able to experience your consciousness. You can't experience my consciousness. But at the same time, we can still bounce ideas off each other and still progress things forward. So I think if you feel stuck in a situation or with friends, family, relationships, just really reflect on why you're actually still there. And reflect on what you really want to do. And just hold yourself to those standards and take responsibility. Because obviously this is a huge conclusion. But all right, but there's a difference between leaders and managers. Yeah. And a leader is someone who's willing to take responsibility for themselves or accountability for themselves. Or, yeah, pretty much. A manager is someone who puts the accountability on others. So you can ask yourself, am I a manager of life or am I a leader of my life? And just for ourselves, am I just managing it? Am I putting the accountability of my successes, my failures, my everything, this, that, or the other on others? Like I said earlier, am I depending on others to set the rules for me, or am I creating my own rules? Because we can take our individuality and our uniqueness and we can apply a lot more to it than we think. Right? So I think really just live a life of love, compassion, patience. And then for everyone, but especially men, find yourself as a savage servant. You can be savage. You can be someone who is a builder, like what you said earlier, because I absolutely love that. You can be a builder, but you can also serve with a full heart and compassion and empathy.
Yeah.
You can do both. You can be the savage servant. You don't have to be only a servant or only savage. And once again, whatever we think of savage, when I think savage, I'm like hard worker, go getter, freaking slay the day away. A servant, helpful, compassionate, someone that wants to help either others or the world. Why have one or the other when you can just have both? Like, I understand that some folks don't like Neapolitan ice cream, but everyone likes 3 flavors.
Sure. I like that. That's very well said at the end. Be a savage servant. I might have to steal that too.
Oh, I stole it from someone else too.
I like that a lot.
It's cool, eh?
I like it. Cool. Well, yeah, man. I think that's well said. Perfect way to wrap it up. For the people that want to, learn more about you and what you got going on, what's some of your socials? Where can people find you?
I am on the YouTube, Warrior Body Coaching, Kyle Smith. I think that's on YouTube. And it's just Warrior Body Kyle everywhere else. WARRIOR Body, BODY Kyle, KYLE.
Nice.
No like thingies in there, no emojis, just right across the board. Super, super simple. And it's the same over all platforms. Yeah.
Cool.
And then other than that, I just want to say, like, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. I respect what you're doing. I think that the thing that a lot of men are missing out on is actually a positive male role model.
Agreed.
And I'm going to say that you're inspiring me to actually think more about it in that kind of a way, where it's like, I think like being able to have a positive impact on the younger generation from boys to men is so profound, because there's not that much. There's not enough like healthy, freaking balanced folks or men that are out there. And I think what you're doing is absolutely phenomenal. So I appreciate you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that, man. That was very, very kind. I definitely, I try to, just like I said, set a good example, and hopefully guys, whoever really takes on what I'm saying and runs with it. So yeah, man, I'm just one guy trying to make a difference. That's all.
Same. That's it.
Facts.
And the best thing is that there's like situations like this where we can just collaborate and try to help even more.
Right? That's exactly. Which is why I appreciate you coming on, man. And I'd love to in the future maybe have you on a future show, have you on another one. Because I was thinking, I got some people that I've done interviews with in the past. Maybe having like a panel of multiple people, like 4 or 5 of us at a time, just going back and forth. I think that'd be sweet.
I think that'd be fun. Yeah. Oh, I'm totally down for that.
Hell yeah. Sick. I'll let you know when that happens, but I was thinking about it. All right, guys. Well, we're about the top of the hour now. I appreciate my guest, Kyle, for hopping on, man. That was an awesome discussion. If you're just joining now or you're late to the party, go back and check it out on my recording. You can see the whole thing on my YouTube channel. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, comment below, subscribe, all that fun YouTube stuff. And if you want to see my socials, all my links are down below. If you want to work with me, my Instagram, all that's down below. And I'll leave Kyle's stuff, in the description as well if you guys want to check him out. So appreciate you guys. Appreciate Kyle for hopping on, and we'll see you guys next week. Peace.
See you.